To start with, my name is Navin. I am the founder of Cohort, and I'll be facilitating this session with you guys for the next 60 minutes. Um, I got into group coaching because it played a huge role in my leadership journey, my personal leadership journey. And so I've been in the training and talent space for some 20 years now, and always been in the leadership space, and personally got a chance to join a leadership program in 2016 called the Acumen Fellowship. So the Acumen Fellowship, here's a picture of the fellowship program or my cohort in the fellowship program. The Acumen Fellows is really a leadership program for social innovators. Acumen is a non-profit that selects and invests in leaders that are working on tackling poverty. So in 2016, I got a chance to do this program. It was a global program. They selected 11 people from across the world. And they invested heavily in us. They sent us to New York for 3 months. They brought in lecturers from Harvard and Stanford and Google. And then they sent us off to India, South America, and Africa to go work with nonprofits. And at the end of that experience, after having all of this input from all these amazing thought leaders and trainers, for me, the most useful and valuable piece of that experience was my experience with my cohort members. My group members did more to push me and encourage me and support me and hold me accountable in service of my growth than the program curriculum or lecturers did. So that was my first sort of realization around the power of small groups to support each other, especially in the work of developing leaders. I got a chance actually to bring the Acumen Fellowship to Southeast Asia. So for the last 3 years, I led the expansion in Southeast Asia, launching programs in this region, recruiting some of the most phenomenal individuals working on things like clean energy and agriculture and working with the poorest of the poor all across Southeast Asia. And so I recruited them, amazing people, leaders in their own right. We ran the program for them. And this is a picture of us last year, around 100 of us. And the feedback I got was the same from them. The feedback was that the curriculum is great, but the most useful thing for them was the experience of being placed in small groups that became almost like their personal advisory board. You know, a small group to encourage them, to hold them accountable, to push them, to challenge them. And they all felt like they didn't have that in their lives and were so grateful for it. And so that really led me down this path of realizing, like, what is group coaching? How do we do it better? And how come we don't do it enough? And so that's what I'll speak to you guys about today. Group coaching, which is essentially what that is, bringing a small group together so that we're all on the same page. For today, this is how we'll be talking about group coaching. We'll talk about group coaching as the process of working with a small group on a regular basis to help them achieve their personal goals, right? And in a group coaching session, group members learn from each other. The value of a group coaching session is that group members are learning from the diverse perspectives, from the different perspectives of their group members. And a big piece of group coaching is group members supporting and encouraging each other, and importantly, holding each other accountable. So that's how we're defining group coaching today for this session. The reason why I emphasize that's how we're defining it today for this session is because if you go online, there's like a lot of definitions for group coaching, right? And I don't want to step into that minefield. And for today, this is how we'll be talking about it, and this is what we're trying to do. And it's helpful to understand group coaching in comparison to other forms of modalities where you bring small groups together, right? The most common ones are training. So training is when you're providing instruction, when you're teaching, which is really what I'm doing today, right? So I'm positioning myself as a subject matter expert. I'm sharing all this information. That's a training session, and that's not group coaching. So this is not group coaching, right? The other modality that often gets confused with group coaching is team coaching. So team coaching is when you work with a team who has a team goal and you help them sort of work towards that goal. A big part of team coaching is helping the team work together better towards that goal. So that's a very powerful coaching model as well. But for today, that's not what we're talking about, because that's a different approach. Working with a team who have a common goal, so like a revenue target or a product launch target, that's a different modality of training, of coaching. And the third modality that's often sort of put quite similar to group coaching is facilitation. So facilitation is when you work with a group to help them achieve a task or overcome a challenge. So it could be helping a group sort of tackle a problem, develop a strategy, or manage a conflict that's happening in the group, or help them make a decision, right? So you get your, for instance, your CEO and your senior managers together, you help them facilitate a session to help them develop a strategic plan. That's also not group coaching, that's facilitation, right? The reason why I want to spend some time on this is because it's important to know the differences so that you're using the right tools, techniques, and approach for the session, right? If you try and do, if you're working with a team and you're team coaching them and you use group coaching methodology on it, you'll be disappointed. You won't achieve the goals you're trying to achieve, right? So it's important to know the differences, but also like no need to stress and get too hung up on the definitions, right? You just want to know the differences so you understand how to navigate it a little bit. The truth is that often you're combining modalities. You know, very often what you do is you provide a training program, you train folks on something, and then you do group coaching to help them as they're practicing. So for instance, you teach a group about coaching, about communication skills. And so you do a training session and then you follow that up by group coaching. So you're helping that group sort of like practice, get feedback, and get support on their communication skills application. Um, the other combination that often happens is you start with group coaching, you work with a group, and then after the group coaching session, you realize like actually this group wants to sort of solve a problem together. They all realize like they want to like maybe develop a strategy or overcome a challenge, and then you shift into facilitation mode, which is absolutely fine, right? You can mix this up. The importance is to know what you're doing so that you can apply the right tools and techniques to it. So the big benefits of group coaching, as I've explained, is the fact that it's really good at developing leadership skills. From my personal experience, I've seen this across programs as well. People call it soft skills, but I hate the word soft skills, like I think most of you all. I think of it as power skills, of leadership skills. So analytical thinking, critical thinking, mobilizing change, managing conflict, all of that stuff. Leadership skills requires practice. That's how it gets done, right? You can't teach these skills, which is why business schools struggle to develop leaders, right? You can't just teach leadership skills. These skills sort of come through practice, through feedback, through trying again, stretching yourself. And that is very difficult to do by yourself. It's very hard to sort of stretch yourself, step out of your comfort zone by yourself. It's a lot easier to do when you have a small community to help you and support you, who can encourage you to start with, but then give you feedback, share different perspectives, hold you accountable so that you're not, selling yourself short, you're doing what you're trying to do. And that's a huge benefit of group coaching, the fact that it can help people develop those skills. The second benefit of group coaching is the fact that it helps build relationship. This I'm finding increasingly a good reason for group coaching today, because increasingly companies have a very different type of work setting, right? People are working from home, you've got distributed teams. So people are feeling very disconnected from their teams and from each other. And so they're not feeling a sense of belonging to the organization. So group coaching, because there's such a big emphasis on group members building relationships, trust-based relationships that go beyond your work type of relationships, that more like are vulnerable, are more about sharing personal challenges. That really helps build relationships, and is very valuable when you're trying to build a sense of belonging in the workplace. So that is group coaching. I'm just setting the context for today's session. That's what we'll be talking about today. I am going to share a cheat sheet with you, right? So my goal for today is to help you sort of get to a point where you're ready to run your own group coaching session. So if you're new to this, if you've never run a group coaching session before, my goal for you is that you feel confident enough to start. Because it is a journey, right? You have to practice and you have to get better at it. There's a lot of other stuff you need to learn. But with today's whatever 45 minutes or whatever we'll talk about this, I want to get you to a point where you can get started, or at least you know what questions to ask and what to research. If you have thinking, we're going to talk about thumb size of group size and all that shortly, right? So you can leave your questions in the chat. I'm horrible at reading chat while I am talking at the screen. Charu will help me. I'll get to it, I promise, at the end, or if I can during the session. So if you're new, I want to get you to a point where you can run a session. If you're experienced, and if you're like a trained coach, ICF certified and all of that, what I hope you will get from this is maybe a couple of different perspectives of looking at group coaching. And maybe you can also see what you don't want to do or what you want to do, right? So look at it as just a different perspective to coaching that might be helpful or not. Charu, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, there's a question on the chat. Is there a rule of thumb on the size of group when doing group coaching?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about that shortly. So here's what we're going to do today. The cheat sheet has 4 stages, right? I'll talk to you about recruiting a group, preparing the group, you're running your first kickoff session, and then finally talk to you about actually running a group coaching session. So I truly believe like the prep is super important before even running a session. So I'll talk to you about how to do all of that and also running a session. And while I talk to you about the 4 stages, I'll also talk about, I'll give you some guidance on the format of a group coaching session, answering the question of group size. I'll talk to you about the role of a group coach so you understand how to position yourself, and then talk to you about a tool or some tools that you can use to be more effective when you're running the session. So that's my plan for today. I am actually going to talk to you guys, as in like talk to you guys. I'm afraid I'll have to rely on the screen at all the doors because today's session is about downloading information to you. So bear with me, take as much notes as you can and save your questions as well. Put it in the chat and we'll get to it as well. So I'm going to start with format. Let's answer this question of group size, right? So that we're all on the same page when we talk about group coaching. Here is a format that I recommend. This is by no means the rule. You can, of course, experiment with different sort of like formats, but this is based on my experience. This is a good format. The first thing is to keep the group small. So when I say small, 8 to 12 people. I find below 8 is too small, so you don't get enough diversity of thought, diversity of perspectives and contribution. And above 12, it's a bit hard to hold the group together, right? Because there are a lot of people. What kind of happens when you have more than 12 people is smaller groups start forming within the group, right? You want to keep the group's coaching session to 90-minute blocks. So I found that people cannot focus more than 90 minutes. Actually, people can't even focus more than 45 minutes nowadays, right? So I would say keep your sessions to 90-minute blocks. If you're doing it virtually, then you really must keep it to 90 minutes because people get exhausted virtually. If you're doing it in person, then you might be able to do a 3-hour session, but then like break it up into 2 sessions or something like that. Charu, you have a question?
Yeah, so the question in the chat, does group coaching, is it better to be organized by the manager of the team?
Yeah, so I'll get to the questions, Charu. I think, don't worry, I'll keep track of the questions. I'll just go through this first, and then as I go, some of these questions will be answered, and if not, at the end, I'll make sure we get to them. So you can help me track it, it'll be helpful. So 8 to 12 group size, 90-minute blocks, very important. People lose focus outside of that. The recommendation is to meet regularly. So group coaching doesn't happen like, hey, let's 12 people get together, let's run a group coaching session, it's done. That rarely happens. Group coaching is you meet regularly over time because you need to build relationships. The coach and the group, of course, must build a relationship, but the group members themselves must build a relationship. So when you embark on group coaching, you're talking about committing to a longer term engagement. You're talking about doing multiple sessions. I'd say minimum 4 sessions more, right? And of course, you can do this virtually, in person, or hybrid. You'll mix it up. And when you make the decision to do it virtually, in person, or hybrid, what you're balancing is accessibility and presence, right? So if you do it virtually, it's going to be more accessible to your group members. People are going to be able to attend it easily, wherever they're based. But the level of presence they bring to the session is going to be the challenge, right? So in virtual settings, people take a longer time to actually bring their full self to it. It's harder to be vulnerable. It's harder to talk about your challenges. It's harder to be there and really hear people virtually. So that's a balance you need to navigate for yourself, right? If you are running a business that is hybrid or that is distributed, you'll probably have to do it virtually and sort of overcome those challenges. But if you have an office space, people are coming in regularly, then you can mix it up a bit. So again, this format is just guidance. It is not by any means the rule. You can experiment with it. Try smaller groups, try bigger groups, see what works for you. Try longer sessions as well. You never know. But to get started, this is a good format to follow. So we talked about format. Let's talk about recruitment. That's the first stage of prepping for your group coaching session, right? Let me just say about recruitment before we get into it, okay? So for me, recruitment is the most important piece of running an effective group coaching session. If you recruit the right people for your group coaching session, I personally feel more than half of the battle is won, right? Because having the right people in the group who are ready for the group coaching session is really a core piece of this being successful. So when recruiting, I recommend you look for three things. One, a unifying purpose. So the group is not a team, maybe. I mean, they can be a team, right? But this is not team coaching. So there's no team goal. But at the same time, they must have a reason that they are all connected, right? So there must be something that connects the group. It could be their unifying purpose is that we are all here to grow, to level up, to sort of learn. That's fine. Or it could be in your organization, this group all are really gunning for a promotion, or they all believe that the company needs to be more innovative. So I really recommend that you identify a unifying purpose for the group when you're bringing them together and recruit them for it. So they must all have that common reason for attending, right? The second piece is commitment. And this is like a big piece of effective group coaching session, because so much of the session depends on group members supporting each other and showing up for each other. And that requires commitment to, of course, attend and be there physically, but commitment to really be like there, bring your whole self to it, commitment to sharing, vulnerably supporting, challenging each other. That's a big commitment. So that's the second piece. You really need to recruit for commitment. And the third piece is growth mindset, right? So growth mindset is that they all believe that they can get better, that they all can learn something new and get better, right? And that's a big piece, because group coaching is about them sort of pursuing their personal goals. All right, so that is the first piece of recruitment. These are the three things to look for. And because you're sort of recruiting for these three things, you can't just say like, hey, we're doing a group coaching session. Who wants to join can join. This is the time, right? You need to have a selection process. So you could ask people to apply to join. You could have a simple application form and maybe an interview. And through that process, you're selecting them for their unifying purpose, their commitment, and their growth mindset. And this is probably possible if you're a large organization. So let's say you have thousands of people in your organization, you can do this. It's more likely that you are maybe targeting a certain group already. Maybe you're already targeting like high potentials in your company, or maybe your company is not very big. Maybe it's like 50 people, right? In which case, an open application is probably not the most efficient way of recruiting your group. What you want to do instead might be to actually select or nominate people. So you get managers to nominate their team members for the program, or you yourself, maybe on HR, you can select people based on their performance, right? When nominating or selecting, you're probably selecting for unifying purpose, and you're probably selecting for growth mindset if they're high potentials. What you are not sure of is their commitment. So someone being nominated for it is not someone signing up for it, in which case their commitment is a question mark. So you want to make sure that you're testing, especially for commitment. The third model or the third method is to get your CEO to sponsor. That means to get your CEO to tell the team that, hey, I want you to attend this session, right? This is when your company is very small. You're 15-person startup. You've got, eight people that you want to get through the group coaching. That's like half your team already. So there's no application here. There's no nomination here. And you still want to do group coaching. So in this case, you get your CEO to sort of sponsor the program by saying like, hey, he or she says that, hey, I think this is important. I want you all to attend it. And so there's unifying purpose because it's for the company. There's a common reason. There's commitment because, I'm assuming that they're all committed because the CEO has, said that they have to be. The question mark is growth mindset. So do they all have the growth mindset to sort of want to come and learn and improve themselves? So thinking a question around recruiting new headcount or recruiting within the company. I'm talking here about recruiting within your organization or within a group that you have accessibility to. That means the group that you're trying to recruit from, right? So here is really from the current employees. One of the questions I often get is, can we mix managers and their teams together? My recommendation is to not do this, because especially in Asia, in our region, the hierarchy is very, very strong. Actually, not just here, like anywhere as well, right? The manager team hierarchy is very strong, and even the most, open-minded manager, that hierarchy is still present, and it's very hard for team members to be vulnerable and to open up. So as much as possible, I would avoid it. In very rare cases, you might have managers that really are like peers to their people, and then you can sort of like include them. But in most cases, I would keep managers and teams in separate groups, because it does take a long time for groups to be open and vulnerable if their managers are in the room. So that's recruitment. And like I said earlier, recruitment for me is like the most important piece. Honestly, my experience with running these programs is, if you get recruitment right, half the job is done. Like, it's actually quite fun to do group coaching if you get the right people. So once you've recruited the group, you want to spend some time preparing them for the experience. Because the truth is, people actually don't know what a group coaching session is, right? They're used to training, they're used to one-on-one coaching maybe, but they're really not used to group coaching. So they don't know what's expected of them and how to show up for it. So in preparation, you're doing two things, right? You're setting expectations of what the experience is going to be like. And that's things like, listen, punctuality, presence is important. Like, we expect you to contribute to the session. We expect you to be an active participant. So you can share all of this upfront, just to give people a warm up of what's expected of them. And the other piece of preparation is to build relationships. So when I first started group coaching or running these small sessions, I used to get very, I guess, nervous. I used to get very nervous, because you bring these groups together, and if you're doing a good job with recruitment, these are like amazing people. They are talented, they're opinionated, they're high performers. It can be a bit intimidating. And what is helpful to do when you run the sessions is to actually build relationships with people before the session starts, one-on-one. So when you build relationships, what I mean is you speak with them one-on-one and say like, hey, we're having the group coaching session soon. What are you hoping to get out of it? What are your questions? Through those conversations, you'll actually identify allies, people who are actually your allies in the room. These people, are showing up the way you want them to show up. They're ready to contribute. They're ready to sort of like support each other. They're excited. So it's helpful to know your allies so you can lean on them a little bit. And it's also helpful to identify, we'll call them challenging individuals. So individuals who might be a bit like, they've got growth mindset, unifying purpose, committed, but they're a bit apprehensive about the experience or you as a coach. So it's also helpful to identify them upfront so you can prep for the session. You know what to look out for. You won't be caught off guard. So preparation can be done for setting expectations. You can send an email. I highly recommend that you create a video of yourself, sort of talking them through what the expectation is like. People, it's very engaging. People really buy into videos. So this is sent via email upfront before the session starts. The relationship building, you can do it in person or via video call. Set up. You don't have to speak to everyone in the group, just 3 or 4 people just to build some relationships. That will help you as well. So that's prep. So we did recruitment, we did prep. I want to talk to you about role, because what we're going to do next is talk about the kickoff session, which is your first session with them, your first interaction with the group. But before we talk about kickoff, let's talk about the role, right? So your role as a group coach is to help the group achieve their objective, right? Straightforward. And the group's objective is to support each other in achieving their personal goals. They are there to help each other achieve their personal goals. So you as the group coach, what you are trying to do is essentially lift the wisdom in the room. You're trying to lift the diverse perspective and opinions and advice and support that each group member will have for each other, right? So you're trying to create that space. You can do this. I've put down 5 ways you can do this, and I'll talk through the 5 ways with you, right? But essentially, you can do this as the authority. So you set constraints, you set rules for the group, so they all work within a certain constraint that is in service of their group goal. You can share prompts and questions. I'll share what good prompts and questions look like later. You can synthesize and frame the conversation to help focus the conversation. You can run activities. So you can run breakout sessions. You could prepare upfront an activity for them to do to achieve their goal. Or you could share an observation. So you're the group coach, you're observing the discussion, how they're interacting, and you share the observation. So I'll talk about each of this shortly. But I wanted to just like remind you that you're not the subject matter expert. You don't have to be in a group coaching session. You don't have to be the expert on any particular field in group coaching, because that is not what you're trying to do. You're not teaching, you're not training in this session. You're holding space for them to help each other out, right? So you still need skills, and these are some of the skills you need, the 5 things I've listed here, but it's a different type of expertise. It's not a subject matter expertise, right? So just hold this as we talk about the next session or the next part, which is the kickoff. So kickoff is your first session. This is, I wouldn't even call this the group coaching session yet. This is the first time you're meeting your group together virtually or in person, right? And you're trying to do 2 things here. You're trying to set the container, so set the space up, and you're trying to start building a brave and safe space, so build relationships among group members. So I'll talk about container setting first. Container setting is, one, you want to clarify your role. So you did this in the email, in the prep email, but again, you want to tell them that, hey, I'm the group coach. I'm here to help each other achieve your personal goals, right? I'm not here as a subject matter expert. I'm not here to problem solve for you. I'm here to help you interact with each other. You want to share what's expected of them. So that's participation, commitment, all of that stuff. And you want to set some rules and norms so that they all know what they're operating within. And I'll talk about rules and norms next, because that's a big part of the experience. So the first piece is container setting. The second piece is you want to help the group to get to know each other better. So this is the first time they're all meeting. In a normal office setting, professional setting, people show up a certain way, right? So people show up a certain way. They're not going to open up and talk about their personal challenges and be vulnerable when they meet, because that's not how office settings are like, professional settings are like. So you need to do a bit of work to help them get past that barrier, to help them realize like group coaching requires you to maybe drop that office posture a little bit and bring a more real human posture to the experience. And so you can think about activities to do this. Speaking to experienced coaches, they'll have a lot of activities. One of the activities that I have found valuable is the River of Life activity. So if you Google River of Life activity facilitation, you'll see a couple of different guides on it. Essentially, it's an activity where you get people to sort of map out their life from when they were young to where they are now, right? And they share it with each other. And by doing so, they get to know each other better. And they, sorry guys, I got a bad throat today. Right. So when they share with each other, they get to know each other better. It's a very vulnerable activity. People talk about past failures, past successes, past experiences, and that sharing helps people build relationships. So you don't have to run this activity. It's a suggested activity, but the goal here is to get people to open up in a different way. Okay, rules and norms. Let's talk about rules first. My recommendation for rules is to set as few rules as possible, right? Because you want the group to determine their own rules. You want them to take ownership for the space. So you setting so many rules takes away that sense of ownership from them. It's almost compliance to you. So set as few rules as possible. The 3 rules I'd recommend you set are the 3 on the slide. One is to speak from the I. So you ask people whenever they're sharing to speak from their personal experiences. So here I is I, not I. Yeah, I read a session once for a group and they all thought I was saying speak from the I and they were all confused. So here I'm talking about speaking from the I, the me, which means speaking from personal experiences. The second is to always practice compassion and curiosity. So you want the group to balance being compassionate to each other, caring to each other, but also being curious. and sort of digging deeper into what each other are sharing and talking about. And the third piece is, and this should be always the case, the confidentiality part, right? So you want the group to make sure that they're always keeping what they discuss in the room confidential. So I would start the session by saying, like, these are the 3 rules I recommend, I want you guys to follow. And then you get them to set their own group norms. So group norms are agreed upon behaviors and mindsets for them to adopt in the session. So you want the group to start thinking about, actually, how do you want to show up for the group coaching session? You know, what is our norm around attendance, around punctuality, around the use of devices, things like that, right? In most cases, people will sort of like, trainers would sort of say like, these are the rules. But if you get the group to own it, it's a lot better because then they own the space. And as the coach, you can sort of nudge them to think about things like devices and what works in their benefit, right? The group norm setting session is the first time the group actually comes together and tries and does something together. So in your kickoff session, this activity of setting norms is a very powerful activity because the first time people negotiate, people talk about what the expectations are of each other and things like that. So a quick note on virtual sessions. If you're doing it virtually, the challenge is presence. People are not really there. So I would recommend 3 things. 1, keep videos on. Make sure people keep their videos on. Keep the sessions to 90 minutes, as I mentioned, and try and find opportunities for people to meet in person. All right, so we are finally at the group coaching session. This is the actual session that you're running. So as I mentioned, so much of it is the prep. If you do the prep properly, the session becomes a lot easier and a lot more fun as well, right? So with the session, let me just start by saying that there are a lot of ways to run a group coaching session. With experience, you'll have your own way, and there are a lot of training programs out there that I recommend you join to get the right approach. What I'm going to share with you is a cheat sheet for someone who is new. So it really is a cheat sheet, right? If you're an experienced coach, you'll probably be disappointed with me because you think I'm selling the person short, but this is really just a cheat sheet to get you started, right? So here's a sample structure for a group coaching session. It's sample, so the idea is that you can take it, you can build on it, you can edit it, you can change it, you can experiment with it. But when I run a session, I normally do these 3 things. I start with an opening reflection question or prompt. So for this session, I said, why do you want to join group coaching, or why do you want to learn about group coaching, right? And so that helps folks, hopefully it helps folks think about, like, why am I here? Why am I spending the 60 minutes or 45 minutes here learning about this session, watching this guy talk at me, right? So the reflection question helps people get present, help people arrive in the space, right? And then in the middle, I've prepared 3 templates with you, which I'll share very quickly. I also share the slides with you so you have the notes. But there are 3 templates I've prepared for you to go through. It could be a problem solution template where the group discusses a problem and then a potential solution. It could be an explore the idea template, so they explore a new idea together. Or it could be a peer consulting template where they hear someone's problem and they give them advice. Finally, you want to close the session with an aha or takeaway question. So you start with the reflection question to arrive. You do your session in the middle. I'll give you some templates shortly. And then you close with an aha or takeaway question that helps them sort of reflect on what they experienced in the group coaching session. So this is a very simple model that you can take and you can experiment with, right? So problem solution template. I'll share the slides with you, but essentially what you're doing is you're sharing 2 questions with the group. You have a problem discovery question, which might be, what is your greatest challenge at the moment? And you get the group to discuss that in breakouts. So you send the group out for 20 minutes in a breakout to talk about what their greatest challenges are. The group comes back, they sort of share their discussion highlights, what came up. And then you as the coach, now this is where a bit of skill is required. When you hear the challenges that they're sharing, you need to quickly synthesize what they're sharing and frame it as a challenge that applies to everyone. For example, let's say we did a group coaching session and people come back and talk about various challenges, right? One of the big ones that they are facing is a challenge with their boss, or a challenge with a customer, or a challenge with a partner. So the framing of that could be difficult, challenging relationships. How do you solve that? So it applies to the group, right? So the synthesizing of it is something you need to do as a coach, right? And you'll get better with practice. And then what you do is you send the group off to talk about a possible solution, right? So that's the solution discovery question. And then they can come back and they can share if you have time. So this is the problem solution template, a very simple template to get people to discuss their challenges and how they might tackle it together and hear from their group members' advice, right? The explore an idea template is where the group discusses a new idea together. So in this model, what you do is you might share some video or article before the session. So you share an interesting article or video before the session, you get them to watch it. And then when they come for the session, you ask the group to talk about what they thought about the video. So they all watch the video. What do you think about it? As a group, you talk about it for 10 minutes. And then they go into breakouts and discuss how to apply that new idea at work. They come back, discuss the highlights of their discussion, and then they talk about the potential challenges of applying the idea at work. So this is exploring a new idea, right? This is a very common template or a good template if you're running training programs with your group. So if you're running like an online course and they're learning online sessions, bite-sized online training, you can get them to do the training and then come to the group coaching and unpack the idea through this template. And then finally, there's the peer consulting template. The peer consulting template is where you get one group member to share their challenge with the group, and the group sort of dissects it and gives them feedback, right? So the template works as the group member you pick or volunteers to share a challenge. So they do that for 5 minutes, and then the group spends 5 minutes asking the presenter clarifying questions. So the first 5 minutes when they're sharing, they're just sharing, right? The person that has the challenge is sharing. Then the group asks clarifying questions for 5 minutes. And then what happens is you ask the presenter, the person that was sharing, to switch off their video or to turn around if they're meeting in person. So they are not present while the group discusses the challenge. So what this does is it creates an opportunity for the presenter of the challenge to hear different perspectives of their challenge. Often what comes up is like, oh, they don't even get my challenge, or, oh, I didn't realize I was talking about my challenge this way. So it gives a very different perspective to the challenge. And then the group discusses potential solutions and shares back with the presenter, and they debrief that experience. So this is not meant to solve the problem, though sometimes it does. It's meant to provide a lot of diverse perspectives, which is the point of group coaching. So finally, tools. So we've done the whole stages. We've talked about format and role as well. And then finally, some tools for you, right? I don't want to overwhelm you with tools, but the tool that I think is most helpful is this model. It's the observe, interpret, and intervene model. It's called OII, right? So as a coach, what you want to be doing in a session is always be observing the group. And through that observation, you want to develop interpretations. So when a discussion is happening, you are forming your own interpretations of what's happening in the group. And then you can choose interventions based on your interpretations, right? Your interventions can be in the form of posing a question or a prompt to the group. It could be you synthesizing a discussion or reframing a discussion for the group. It could be you sharing your observation. So for example, your observation itself could be an intervention. So you observe the group, they're all discussing, 2 people are very quiet. That's your observation. And so your intervention could be to share with the group, hey, I realized when the 12 of you were discussing, 2 people were quiet. I wonder what that's about. That itself is an intervention for the group because they'll have to engage with that intervention. And the fourth, of course, is you running an activity. So you can run an activity for the group as well. So a good question or prompt and a good synthesization or framing helps the group focus in on the discussion, right? So when you're a group coach, a lot of what you're trying to do is you're trying to move the group in ways that are productive for them. And often, because you have so many diverse perspectives, loud voices and quiet voices, the interventions you do are really to help the group focus in on discussions or to move the group in a direction that is beneficial to them, not for you, but for them, in ways that you think will be beneficial for them as a group. So the tools you have are these 4: questions, prompts, synthesis and framing, sharing your observation, and running activities, right? One tip I have for you is if the session becomes overwhelming, either for you or for the group, breakout rooms are a great way to disperse energy. So if a discussion gets heated or you're feeling like people are not really present, they're all very quiet, and the energy is very low, a good way to sort of reset the room or the whole session is to use breakout rooms virtually. Or if you're in a big group, you get them into smaller breakouts and go into different spaces. That helps disperse the energy and bring it back again later. So always use breakout rooms and prompts for your breakout rooms as an emergency tool you need if you're struggling with a group. And finally, on tools, I want to talk a bit about silence. So when you're coaching a group, this is like the big dread or the big fear, right? That you say something, you share a question or a prompt, and there's silence from the group. There's no response. And often this is what throws coaches or facilitators off. It sort of throws you off your game, right? Then you suddenly worry like, oh my God, they don't care about me, or they're not present or whatever, right? My advice on silence is to use it as a tool. One, it is a source of data for you. So if your group is silent, they are telling you something. One is they didn't get it. They maybe don't feel ready to share. It's a source of data for you. And so you can intervene, right? You can do your breakouts, you can come up with another question, etc. Two, silence is actually a great way to raise the heat. Raise the heat as in like help people sort of like really engage with a difficult question. So if you share a question and then leave silence after your question, people sort of stew in it a little bit more, and the heat in the room is raised, and people sort of feel the significance and the weight of the question. So I would use it as a tool to raise the heat a little bit as well. So don't let it scare you. Silence is normal. And the other thing about silence is when you're virtual, silence is a lot more deafening. It feels like a lot longer virtually, and it's not. Use it as a tool. Use it as a tool to give you data on where the group is at. Don't take it personally. And two, use it as a tool to raise the heat in the room as well. So that's the cheat sheet, and that's done. How do you use group coaching in your organization? There are three ways, and I'm sure there are more, but here are the top three that come to mind, right? One is it is a great way to engage with your high potentials, because high potentials should have a unifying purpose of personal growth. They should be highly committed individuals to their personal growth. And three is they should all have growth mindset. So this should be low-hanging fruit in your organization and should be a very high ROI intervention as well, because these are the folks that you're really banking on for the future of your organization, right? So group coaching is great for high potentials. It's great to add on to your online training or your classroom training. So if you're already running training programs where you're teaching people leadership, soft skills, power skills, great. The fact is they need to practice to master those skills, and they need support and feedback as they practice. So group coaching is a great way to provide them with that focus, support, and feedback. So you could add group coaching on to your current classroom training and online training. The third way is if your organization is going through a big change, or you're asking your team to take on stretch goals, which are very challenging, providing group coaching opportunities is a great way to provide them with the support they need with this new challenge, right? So if you're sharing a big change initiative, complementing that with a group coaching opportunity is a great way to show your team that, hey, listen, we know this is challenging. There's a lot of growth you need to do. Here's an opportunity to get support. How often should we meet and when should we end? How often should you meet as in the group coaching session? As I mentioned earlier, I recommend weekly or bi-weekly, so regularly. And when should we end? That's a good question. One is you will have your own limitations, right? So based on resources, you have only so much resources, so maybe you're limited by that, and so that should guide you. The second way to think about it is to leave it to the group to decide. So to start and then to ask the group after a few months or after maybe 10 sessions, is this still something that's valuable to you or not? And then to get them to guide it, because at that point they should own the session, right? They should say, listen, this is still useful. If you're able to coach, great, continue doing it. If they say like, listen, it feels like it's been useful and it's not anymore, then you can stop. So to answer your question, James, there is no like there's no clear guidance on like when you should stop. There's no limit to it. All right, folks. So that's my guidance on group coaching. So if you have the capacity to run your own group coaching session, I highly recommend you start. If for some reason you don't have the bandwidth to run your own session, so you don't have the resources to do it or to do it with enough groups, then that's what we're doing at Cohort. So at Cohort, we run group coaching sessions for growth-minded leaders. So we just launched our open program, which is a 12-week fully virtual program. We bring cohorts of 8 to 10 in a group. Our admission is selective. We look for growth-minded leaders, of course, but we look for people with more than 10 years of experience, 2 of which must be in a leadership role. And what we are doing is we're combining group coaching with leadership curriculum. And so we're helping folks who want to level up as leaders by teaching them leadership skills online and then bringing them together in a coaching setting to support them. So if you're looking for external support for your group coaching, check Cohort out. I'd love to chat with you about how we might be able to help. You can either sponsor a team or a couple of your team members. So sorry, you can sponsor one or a few people for Cohort. Or you can sponsor a whole dedicated cohort, so your own cohort from your organization in one of our programs, or we could custom build a program for you. So if you want more information on this, I probably have all of you on email, so I'll connect with you and you can let me know. I'll give you more information. But I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, we have some time, you can put it in the chat. Otherwise, Charul, any thoughts or any final notes? Did I miss any questions in the chat?
No, you got everything.
Yeah. So I will be sending over the slides. I'll send you all an email and I'll send you the slides as well. I'll also send you a recording so you can revisit this and revisit the content. I hope you found it helpful, guys. It was wonderful sharing this with you and all the best with your group coaching. If you need any help just to brainstorm anything as well, feel free to reach out. Happy to have a chat and help you guys think through it. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.